So, hello everyone. Thank you, Hadi, very much for the introduction. I'm extremely excited being here. There are a lot of people, and I'm hoping you will find this session interesting. So, it's called ReSharper Secrets, kind of a clickbait name. I am going to talk to you about mainly something that's called ReSharper Annotations, which I think is a very powerful feature of ReSharper, which not many people are aware of. And in kind of the second part of this session, I'll show you my personal kind of features of ReSharper that ReSharper does that, in my opinion, are not very popular, but they're extremely powerful and useful, and you should know about them. I will try to explain the shortcuts I use as I go along, but if you're unfamiliar with the screen or setting, please just ask it in the questions bar, and you will get an answer. So before we actually get started with annotations, and before I tell you what those are and how to use them, I do want to show you one particular feature that was introduced, I think, back in ReSharper 7. So just to keep track, today we're on ReSharper 8.1. So next version is being worked on right now. So back in ReSharper 7, the guys introduced a brand new feature that helps you to implement the Inotify property changed interface. So if you've done any XAML-related work whatsoever, so WPF, Silverlight, Windows Phone, you've no doubt met this guy, which is the Inotify property changed interface. So you have to implement it on objects on which you want to enable change notifications. And there are many different ways to implement this interface. All of them have various degrees of magic associated with them. You have either code generation or post-compilation transformation, or sometimes called IL weaving. And ReSharper offers you a way to do this also. But before I show that to you, I do want to kind of go over to see what this is all about if you're not familiar. So if you are using one of the more popular MVVM frameworks such as Catel, Prism, Caliburn, so what I'm about to show you kind of get out of the box automatically. You don't have to do anything for it. But if not, if you have your own kind of WPF project in which you use kind of the MVVM pattern, so you will probably have something like this. So you will have an abstract base class which will be called notification object, or maybe view model base. Okay, and it will implement the Inotify property changed interface. So the interface only exposes a single event, which called property changed. And for convenience, you will probably have some method that says on property changed, which takes in a string, which is the property name that was changed. And what you would normally do is in the derived class. So let's create a view model class. So let's call it public class. Let's call it a demo view model, which derives from the notification object class. Now, what you would normally do is you would create a string property. Let's call it a first name, for instance. And now, in order to support change notification, you would have to first of all turn it into a property with a backing field, because we need to add the change notification inside the set method, and we cannot do this while the property is not an automatic, while the property is automatic property. So then we would have to go and inside the setter, after doing additional checks for equality, we would have to call the on property changed method and give it the string of the property that was changed. So quite a lot of manual work. And also, you will notice that I made a quite deliberate mistake here, in which I wrote first name instead of first name. You will notice I don't have any warnings that this does not correspond to this, and I would not find out what's wrong until I would run this, and things just wouldn't work. So this is how it used to be done. So actually, before showing you the ReSharper solution, I do want to show you a couple of more possible solutions for this problem. So there are two more ways to kind of do this in code. So you could use, since .NET 3.5, you could use expressions. Lambda expressions to kind of specify the parameter itself. For this, you would need to define another kind of handler, which is protected void, let's say, on property changed of t, which takes in expression expression. This doesn't work for me today. Expression of func of t. Let's call this expression. And from here, I would need to kind of try to cast the body of this expression into a member expression and put it into a variable. By the way, I'm using an amazing plugin for ReSharper that's called Postfix Templates, which allows me kind of assign things to variables and do operations after the fact. So you notice I kind of wrote the expression body first and then typed .var to assign it to a variable. I'll show you maybe later the plugins that I use, but for now, I need to cast the body of the expression as a member expression. And now if it's not null, then what I would like to do is invoke our original on property changed with the name of the member So this allows me to kind of go here, and instead of writing a simple string, it will kind of allows me to specify the property itself as the parameter of the lambda. So now if I rename this lambda property will get renamed automatically. But again, I've kind of had to use manually to go ahead and kind of write this code manually. So I'm going to, for now, remove this method. And even before going to see how ReSharper solves this problem, I will tell you that if you are using .NET 4.5, then the guys in the CLR team added a new attribute that helps solve the on property changed at least string problem by adding a new attribute to the .NET 4.5, which is called color member name. So if I write color member name in front of the property, and I have to set this property to null. So now I can, instead of just doing this, so now I can pass absolutely no strings whatsoever. So what will happen is, in compilation, this property name will be automatically assigned a value of the member which is calling this method. So in our case, the first name. But again, I would have to go and convert the automatic property to a manual property and then kind of do it myself, manually. So I'm going to delete all this right now, and even all this, and show you how ReSharper helps solve this problem. And from here, we'll go on and see exactly what I'm trying to show you. So if you have this situation, when you press Alt-Enter, you will see that you will have a brand new menu here that says Implement Inotify Property Change. So this is different from the regular implement members. So this is a special handling for the Inotify property change interface. So when I select this option, the first time it kind of appears, I will get this weird message box that says that ReSharper could not locate ReSharper annotations in the current solution. And it briefly tells me what annotations are and what they're used for. For now, I'm going to press OK. I mean, yes. And two things happen. First of all, ReSharper added this file called annotations.cs. I'm going to go to this file very shortly and show you exactly what's going on in there. But you will notice that ReSharper generated an on-property change invocator method that looks very similar to the last option which I showed you, because it recognized that the project I'm in is a .NET 4.5 project. And so it generated this, this method with the color member name attributes. Now, if I'm going to go and create my kind of demo view model and derive from notification object and create a string property which called first name. Now, sorry, if I press Alt-Enter, you will see that I have a new option here that says to property with change notification. So when I select this option, two things will happen. First of all, the property will be automatically turned into a property with a backing field. but also the onProperty changed will be automatically added here inside the set. And so from this point on, I can just simply create other properties like last name, and with a single Alt-Enter, I can turn them into a property with change notification. So what changed? Let's see what exactly is different from this from this method declaration, and why am I suddenly able to use the onProperty change thing. So you will notice that on top of this method, there is an attribute that's called notify property changed invocator. So this attribute is a part of ReSharper Annotations, and what it does is it instructs ReSharper that this particular method is used to invoke the notify property change notification. So ReSharper Annotations are basically, I will open up this file right now so you can see. ReSharper Annotations are a bunch of attribute definitions. So there are plain old CLR attributes, and there are a bunch of them. And they're all quite nicely documented and defined inside this one single file. So these are a bunch of attributes that have special meaning for ReSharper. So I will show them to you in a different way. I will invoke the file structure window, which in my case I'm using the IntelliJ key bindings, is Control F11, and I will collapse all the definitions. So you will see there are a bunch of attributes defined here, and they are simple attributes without any implementation in them. So they are just plain old CLR attributes. But their name, together with the namespace in which they are located, make them special for ReSharper. So basically, what annotations do is they provide metadata, additional information for ReSharper to work with, so it can know exactly the context of the context and the purpose of particular methods or fields or whatnot. So here in this case, by using this notify property change invocator attribute on top of this method, I automatically turned it into something ReSharper can use inside a refactoring. I can also take this. I can also take the previous signature, which you saw, the onProperty change with the expression tree. So I've used right now the clipboard manager which ReSharper comes with, which is Control-Shift-V, if you're not familiar with it. So it allows you to select your recent copies and paste them in your own order. So now if I take this attribute, copy it, and apply it on top of this onProperty changed invocation, if I go and create, let's say, a new property, let's call it full name. And now, when I do Alt-Enter, you will see that ReSharper offers me to call either to property with the onProperty changed method that takes in a string parameter, or a property which takes in an expression. So if I select this one, you will see that it will be turned into a property with a backing field, but the onProperty changed will be invoked with the lambda. So you can see that by using one simple attribute that decorates this particular method, ReSharper can use it in the property change notifications. And in addition, what it can do is it can provide. So let's say I want to do so so that any change in the first name or the last name will also update the full name. The full name property. So I can simply add myself the onProperty changed call here, but now I would like to actually call the full name property. And you will notice that ReSharper now offers me code completion for the property names. So I can actually go ahead and select full name here. And now, not only this, if I make a mistake, so I mistype a property name, I will also get a blue squiggly that says cannot resolve symbol full name. So all this I got kind of for free, simply by specifying that this property invocation is in fact used for property changed. So this was allowed by using one of the annotations. So This, like I said, if you're using one of the MVVM frameworks, if you derive from their base class, you kind of get the quick fix to change it to a property with a backing field out of the box. I will later show you exactly how this works. But for now, I'd just like you to know that annotations can be applied directly in code by either defining the class here inside your source files. You can also do this from manually by going into the ReSharper options, into the code annotations menu, and clicking the copy default implementation to clipboard. And when you do this, it will copy all those attributes to the clipboard so you can paste them into a file. So this is how you can do this in code, which is the recommended way in my opinion. You can also apply them externally with XML without any references whatsoever. And you can, if it's in code, you can do whatever you want with it. You can make those internal if you want. You can change the namespace of the annotations, but make sure that if you change the namespace, you go in and update this namespace here in ReSharper options, because this is how ReSharper knows that they are annotation attributes and not just attribute definitions. So now that we've seen how useful this could be for property change notifications, let's now see how what kind of annotations you also have and how they can be useful. So for this, I'm going to go and show you this program well, let's say wrote. I wrote this for the demo purposes. It doesn't work. It doesn't do anything. It doesn't run. I never run it, but it just contains a bunch of methods, so I can kind of demonstrate the rest of the annotations to you. So let's quickly go over this. This is a main app. Checks for argument lengths. Then it has this thing that's called Poor Man's IOC, in which I initialize my dependencies. From this Poor Man's IOC, I request an instance of something that's called customer service. On this customer service, I request a get customer by username with the name demo user, and I get back the customer, and all I do is I just kind of print this customer's first name and last name in the console. So it's, like I said, it does absolutely nothing, but there are quite a few things in here, and most important one is if I go to the definition of this get customer by username by going to definition or control clicking this method, you will see that it doesn't really matter what this does, but in terms of just from looking at the code, you will see that at some point it's possible that this method will return a null. So I do a null check here, and if this entities thing is null, then I return a null. In addition, I also do a singular default call here, which also potentially returns a null. So what could happen potentially in runtime, that I will give this a bad username or username which is not found, and this is not a good code. I mean, I wrote it for demo purposes, so it's not really defensive. So it might return a null at some point. But as you can see, I get absolutely no warnings from ReSharper about it because, well, by default, ReSharper doesn't do any value analysis between method calls. So it will definitely analyze all the variables inside this this particular method, but it has no way of knowing what this method returned. Either this can be null or cannot be null. For this, there are two annotations which we can use, and they are very, very powerful, which can actually let us specify whether or not method return arguments or parameters can or cannot be null. So if we have a function, if we have a method which can potentially return a null as a valid value, let's say it's a valid value to be a null, what we can do is to specify on top of this method that it can be null. Can be null is a part of ReSharper annotations, and once I specify that this method can be potentially null, when I scroll back here, you will immediately see that this customer, the first usage of the customer variable is now flagging with a blue squiggly that says a possible null reference exception. So now ReSharper it has no idea whether or not this really is null or not, but it says it could be. So what you should do is you should check if the customer is not null. So I can press Alt-Enter and add this little null check. So once this is definitely not null, all the errors and warnings go away. So this works great with return values from methods. This also works great with method parameters. Now in this case, I have here the first line is a defensive coding, which checks if the username is null at some. I mean, if the username is in fact null, an exception will be thrown, which is a good thing. We want that probably most of the time. But what we could do is we could even make it even more concrete by saying that we guarantee that this this parameter should always be not null by flagging it with a not null attribute. What will happen now that if I, for some reason, instead of passing here a concrete string, let's extract this to a variable, and let's say I don't know, let's assign this to null. So suppose I request this from a, I don't know, I get this from a query string or something. So if for some reason this string is potentially null, I will also get a blue squiggly that says possible null assignment to entity marked with not null attribute. So ReSharper kind of warns me that this string currently was not definitely checked for null. So it might be possible that I'm passing a null to something that should accept only not null values, and so an exception or something bad will happen. So I must then do a null check, etc. By the way, if you have seen this message before, most probably you have seen this while working with strings. So if you have, for example, something that calls into a string format, and you try to pass in something that is null into a string format, you will get an exact same error message. And this is because, and this is something I will show you later, this is because the entire .NET framework, the entire BCL base class library is sort of annotated by ReSharper. So ReSharper annotations are used extensively throughout the entire thing. So you're always using them without even knowing. And what the JetBrains guys did is they annotated externally with XML. So this, by the way, if you're not familiar, this is a quick doc. So this shows you quick documentation of any method. So I'm using the IntelliJ key bindings. So I pressed Control Q to get this. If you're using the Visual Studio scheme, you press Control Shift F1. So this is like a mini MSDN that gives you a nice formatted help with navigation. So you will notice that the format method of string is also kind of decorates the format parameter with a not null attribute. So obviously this is not really applied to the source code of the .NET framework, but this is applied externally with XML, and I'll show you this towards the end. But you will know that ReSharper uses annotations everywhere it can. So this is how it does most of the magic. So by using annotations to get even more data about particular functions. So by using the can be null and not null attributes, we can improve the safety and usage of our method. So in my particular case, we're using where I work, we're working in Visual Studio with Visual Studio API. At times it can be very unpredictable, so it might return just nulls without any particular warning. So when we want to kind of make sure that our own usage of these APIs is correct, so it's kind of defensive, so we sprinkle around these can be null and not null attributes wherever they're applicable, kind of to force a null check before usage or after usage, which is very, very good. So this was the can be null and not null attributes. They're very, very powerful, but they're just the tip of the iceberg with what's possible in annotations. So the next annotation I want to show you is actually helps you to do this. Okay, so you will notice that I have a console write line here, And inside this console write line, you will notice that I'm using a string format, with the placeholders, kind of highlighted. And if I make a mistake here, so let's say I will write 6 here, you will see that it will tell me that a non-existing argument in format string, and it will also highlight the appropriate parameters. So this was a great addition to ReSharper. I don't remember exactly in which version this was added, but this is an amazing feature. I use it all the time. It also provides contextual quick fixes for this. But this is a console write line method which belongs to .NET. In our own code, you see I have here a call to a logger.log, in which I also do something like this, getting customer with username at parameter, this parameter placeholder. Unfortunately, you will see this is completely static. There's no, ReSharper does not offer any help whatsoever here. What can we do about it? Well, luckily, ReSharper comes with another annotation, in which, if I go to definition here, this annotation is called string format method annotation. Now, it also needs to take as a parameter the name of the format parameter. So I need to give it this message as a parameter name. So what this does is it tells ReSharper that if this method has a string format semantics, so that it accepts in a format message and a bunch of arguments, what you could do, dear ReSharper, is now flag this method, treat this method as if it was like console write line or something like this. So now I get the benefit of using all the goodness of string format inside my own custom logger. So most of the people are using either one of the popular logging frameworks, Log4net or Nlog. Sometimes they roll their own. So here I have a custom iLogger. But if I annotate it with the string format method attribute, I will automatically get the benefit of string format like goodness that ReSharper provides, just for free. And you will notice that I did the definition on the interface, and it will be propagated to all the inheriting classes. So whoever implements iLogger will automatically benefit from this. So it's not only for like logging methods. If you have other methods in your own code that use the string format semantics, so they take a message format and then they take a bunch of arguments. So you can apply this attribute. Again, it's a string format method attribute. You can apply it, and then ReSharper will get this functionality for free. So this was the string format method attribute. Next one I'm going to show you, and this is a really nice one. So how many times has it happened to you? It sounds like a commercial, but sometimes you have something like, let's say I have a string name equals, let's call it Igal, which is my name. So sometimes, really, it's a rare cases, but if we type in name.replace with the letter A, and I want to replace it to a letter C, and we forget to assign it into a variable, well, ReSharper will warn us that the return value of a pure method is not used. Without ReSharper, you would not have any warnings whatsoever, and then you would scratch your head in thinking why doesn't replace work, because, well, replace doesn't really replace the instance, it creates a new instance. And what ReSharper here tells you is that the value of a pure method is not used. Now, a pure method is a method that does not change any observable state, but rather it returns a value all the time. So in order to use the method, its value has to be consumed into a variable. So when I assign the return of this method into a variable, the warning goes away. So we can use the same kind of thing, same pure warning in our own code. So let's say we have a method that always returns a value. It's maybe it's doing a heavy loading operation, and we want to make sure that we don't call it without using the value by mistake. So what we can do is annotate this with a pure attribute. And now if I attempt to use preload entities, just as is, I will also get this warning that says return value if pure method is not used. So what I need to do is I need to kind of, because it returns an IEnumerable, I need to kind of iterate this, or maybe so. In the Postfix Templates plugin, I can use the dot for each, which is great if I want to just turn it into a for each loop. Of course, I can also always use quick fixes, but I find this slightly more fluent. So those were just like a taste of what annotations can do. For the rest of them, you should definitely go into the file and take a look at the different annotation it provides. All of them have XML documentation, so you can kind of place your caret here on top of string format and press Ctrl-Q to get a small example of how to use them. Actually, before we move to the next topic, sorry, let me show you two more annotations that are useful if you're writing any ASP.NET MVC applications. So if you are, let's go to this my view, which I copy pasted before. So if you write ASP.NET MVC apps and you have your own helpers, HTML helpers, which you define, like own extension methods over HTML helper, you will notice that for the built-in ones, the action link, ReSharper will flag this about and home with an underline, allowing me to go and navigate to the about controller and to the home method, or vice versa. But in my own my special link, I see that those are not underlined, that I cannot do anything with them. So fortunately, if you have HTML helpers which use the controller names or the action names or area names or whatnot, you can go ahead to the definition, and for the parameters you can annotate them with ASP MVC controller attribute and ASP MVC action attribute. Okay, like this. And now when I go back to my view, I can see that they will be immediately underlined, and you can use them now just as if they were regular ASP.NET MVC helpers built in. So you can use this for your own code, like I said. The last one is actually the one that's got me into annotations in the first place, got me to explore annotations, is a good friend of mine asked me, he said, look, I have this custom extension method that takes in a parameter which is a path to a JavaScript file. And he asked me, would it be possible to have ReSharper treat this as a real path, so I can like control-click and whatnot. So after, you know, a fairly simple Google search, I've realized that it was very possible. So just by annotating the path parameter here with an annotation that's called path reference, okay, not only I could get out of the box immediately, so I will get a squiggly telling me that, you know, this file is not found. So if I remove this and I do a code completion, I will now have code completion for paths, which is great. So I can select it. If I hold Control, I can have navigation, etc. But what's nice about it, and this will be kind of my final demonstration for the annotations for today. So if I go to path reference, you will see that path reference takes in an attribute, it takes in a parameter called base path. So let's say I want to constrain my paths to only the scripts directory, which most probably what I want to do. So I can kind of go here and say, just go in and only show me the scripts directory. And you will notice that I also have code completion for paths right here inside the code editor. This is because the path reference attribute itself annotates this property with itself. So by now, I hope you realize that annotations are kind of this hidden thing under the covers of ReSharper, but it is being used throughout the entire thing. ReSharper uses annotations on annotations. So this is how ReSharper gets this all additional metadata, all additional information about the context of your methods. So if it's used entirely in the BCL and in the third-party libraries, there's no reason for you not to use it yourself in your own code, so that you will simply provide a better experience for your team that uses ReSharper, or if you have third-party like open source libraries. You can provide an annotations file, which will simply just improve the usage of your APIs. One really last thing with regards to annotations, that if we go to the directory where ReSharper is installed, so if we go to Program Files, JetBrains, ReSharper, go to the version, which is 8.1, and bin, you will find here that there's a folder called External Annotations. Now, this directory contains a bunch of folders that inside them are a lot of kind of assembly names. Each folder represents a certain assembly, and you will see a lot of XML files here that kind of ship with ReSharper, and those XML files define the annotation as they are applicable to a lot of the BCL stuff, a lot of third-party libraries. So you will get to, I will not show everything to you, you will get to explore this on your own if you really want. But if you remember before, I said that if you're using one of the MVVM frameworks, you kind of get the notified property change notification out of the box. This is because by default ReSharper ships with annotations for popular third-party frameworks, so such as Catel or reactive extensions or a couple of Telerik stuff. So if we go to Catel, for example, and go to Catel core, we will see that there's an attributes XML file which is in the XML doc format. But you will see that for an assembly Catel core, for a member that is raised property changed, this an attribute which is notified property changed invocator attribute is applied. So this is how ReSharper builds and applies annotations during startup throughout the entire system. And again, just use it. There's a lot of information available online on the JetBrains blog post, and just in general, just write in ReSharper Annotations in Google. You will find a lot of information about it. So I've noticed that there were a lot of great questions regarding the use of annotations, and I've seen most of them have been answered. So we have about maybe 15 minutes before we end. So Hadi, are there any questions which I should answer? Maybe? Well, I guess not. So with this, I want to kind of go on and switch to another topic, which is just a showcase of kind of my most favorite features of ReSharper that are not very popular, or maybe some of them are, but I believe that they're very useful, but they're not really famous. You know, not unlike navigation. So everybody knows how to navigate files, but features I'm talking about, there are features that are not used all the time, but you know, when they are there, it just saves a lot of time. So the first, and I'm not kidding, but my top 10 absolute most favorite feature of ReSharper is the ability to generate GUIDs on the fly. So if I need GUID anywhere, and I do a lot of work with COM, and if you yourselves had the pleasure of working with the Wix, installer framework based on XML, you have to generate a lot of GUIDs to work with it. And what ReSharper allows me to do is just simply type nguid, press tab, and I get a new GUID generated in any format which I want. So this is available everywhere, everywhere where I can get code completion. So code files, text files, XML files, XAML files, config files. If I just type nguid, press tab, I get a new GUID generated for me on the fly. So this is really incredible without me having to go to tools and then create GUID and select which format I want and copy it to the clipboard. nguid, tab, done. Now, this is my first favorite feature which I wanted to show you, if you didn't know about it. Now, here in my program CS, you will notice I have this little abomination. So this was quite deliberate. So if you're not seeing the problem, you might be of a prehistoric developer that comes from a C background. Now in C, this was actually quite the convention where you have to put the constant when you make an equality check, you have to put the constant before. This is known, by the way, as Yoda conditions. So you have to be Yoda from Star Wars in order to pronounce it correctly. So if 2 is not equals length. So in .NET, there's no reason to write your if statements like this, but sometimes, especially when working with older code, you might meet this. And what you would want to do is you want to flip the operands. So there are two ways you can do this. If you're using ReSharper 8, you can place your caret on the not equal sign or equal sign, depends on what you have. Press Alt-Enter, and the last option is the flip operator arguments, which is great. But my personal favorite way of doing this is, well, it requires from you kind of pretend that you're playing a very tiny piano, and with your left hand make a chord and kind of press Control-Alt-Shift together. And then when you press Control-Alt-Shift while your caret is on one of the operands, you can then use your arrow keys, your left and right arrow keys, to switch the parameters around. So I absolutely love this feature because it quickly allows me to kind of move the order of the parameters in any constellation. So this works inside of if methods. This also works, for example, here in the console right line. I can kind of go ahead, if let's say I kind of by mistake mixed the two parameters which I wanted, I can press Control-Alt-Shift and press left or right to kind of switch between them. Please note that, and this also works inside, let's say, a method parameter. So let's say I will add a new, like, int a here. So when I do Control-Shift left and right, I can also switch those around. Unfortunately, this does not go and update all the colors. So this only happens within your method. So if you're doing this on a public method, let's say, and you will create an incompatible signature, so you will get a compilation error. So this is just to kind of switch placeholders around, which is very nice. But also, if you kind of hold Alt-Control-Shift and then you press up and down, what you can do is you can move your blocks of code around, which is very, very convenient, and it is especially convenient when you put this on the method level. So if you let's say want to reorganize your code, you can place your caret here on the method definition itself. Press Alt-Control-Shift and down, up or down, so you kind of can reorganize the method inside your code. So everything will move together. Now, there is a very similar feature in the Microsoft Power Tools, if I'm not mistaken, but the problem with it is that it only works on the selected text, so it will only work on the selected lines. So if your caret is here and you're trying to use the Power Tools feature, this line will move regardless of the block, so it will cause a compilation error. So if you're moving lines around, use the ReSharper feature and not the Power Tools one. So we're shortly running out of time, but one last feature which I want to show you of kind of my favorite and slightly underused is called value tracking. So again, let's go here into the getCustomerByUsername method, and you will see here I have a call to a logger.log. Now, suppose I wanted to find where is this logger being instantiated? I mean, who creates it? Where does the value come from? So what I could normally do is, I imagine what most of you would do, is simply go ahead and press the Find Usages shortcut and just get a pop-up tool window with all the usages of the logger field. And you could go simply navigate through them, which is fine, completely fine. But imagine that this is a very popular property or a popular field, and you will get a lot of results, because find usages by default looks for read usages, write usages, access usages, whatnot. So instead of doing a find usage, all I want to know is where does this value come from. Luckily, there's a great feature in ReSharper called value analysis, and again, you have to press Alt-Control-Shift, but this time you also have to press the letter A. So it's Alt-Control-Shift A, and when you press it, you get this little menu that says Inspect This. if you want to if you want this to be a bit more convenient, you can also right-click and select it from the Inspect menu here. Inspect this. So it's Control-Shift-Alt-A. When you do this, you have a bunch of options here, but the interesting one is this one called Value Origin. When I click on it, I will get a new pop-up menu that says a new tool window that will allow me to either find return values of getter properties or values assigned to property logger. So this will allow me to drill down, and ReSharper will analyze all the code paths and all the values that were assigned eventually to this property, all the way until it will reach either the instantiation or at some point it will reach a place where this value, this logger property, is being instantiated. So instead of just going through all the usages, I will then, by double-click, can land inside the place where I can see that there's a variable called logger which is being newed up, and then there's this customer service registration in which this value is being assigned. So again, had I wanted to find out exactly who instantiates this property and where does its value come from, all I did was press the value origin menu, and it would tell me. So I can also do the opposite. So suppose I am here in the initialization, and I want to know where the value of this logger is going. I mean, who uses it? Who makes? Where does it end up in? So what I can do is I can press the same chord, Control-Shift-Alt-A, and choose Value Destination. And Value Destination does the opposite. It drills down through the entire code and sees where exactly the value of the logger ends. So you can see that this value currently ends in logger.log. So what I'm saying is this is a great way. Same thing we can do with just about any parameter or any value that you have in the function. What I'm saying is that this is a great way of thinking about what you're trying to find. So if you're trying to find where does a particular value come from, or where does a particular value end up being, so don't think about this as where is this used, because where is this used can mean a lot of things. So usage may be a read usage, a write usage, whatnot. So instead of thinking about it as where is logger being used, think about this is where does the value for logger come from, or where does it go to. And this is where the inspect this menu becomes very, very powerful, allowing you to find just sometimes bugs. So if you're debugging and you suddenly don't understand why is the logger null, you can trace all the places that set the value of logger and see that one of them might be null, instead of just going throughout the entire thing. So I've noticed that there was just one question, and I kind of expected this question, and I would like to answer it. So this is a question that asks, how does this value tracking work with Ioc containers? And the answer is that even though I have a plugin that's called Agent Molder, and it is supposed to handle navigation to and from the Ioc container, it does not support yet value origin analysis. So it will not be able to tell you that the value originates in the constructor, in the container. So this is something that I want to implement. This is an open issue on GitHub where the project lives, and I will get to it one day because it's really powerful. And so yeah, so it's coming. So it's not available yet, but it's coming. So we're about 10.
Igal,
yes.
We got. Yeah. Sorry. Before I was saying no in answer to the question, but I obviously didn't unmute my microphone. So sorry about that.
Yeah,
we got a couple of minutes left.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you wanna wrap it up, or you have any other thing.
Yes, I do. I mean, I obviously could speak about ReSharper for 2 hours more.
Okay, you want to do that?
Maybe not today, but really, this is kind of a request for the audience that if you have enjoyed this, if you learned anything, that if this was at all interesting to you, so please leave your feedback on the webinar page, and we'll see. Maybe we'll do a part 2 or 3 or 4 of this, which will be great. And so for now, we'll wrap it up. So in conclusion, ReSharper Annotations is something that you should definitely look into. It can only improve your code, and people who are not using ReSharper obviously will not be affected by this at any way, because it's just metadata. So if you have your teams using ReSharper, so you can definitely benefit from it. If you have third-party open source libraries in which you kind of distribute to the world, so for ReSharper users, like for example, if you have a logging framework of your own, you can definitely annotate the log methods with the string format annotation, and just have users of ReSharper enjoy the tooling immediately. So so that was about annotations. So if for features, again, there are a lot more features which I can show you, but we're sadly running out of time. So again, if you're interested, just leave your feedback, and we'll see what we can do about this. So I'm done.
Right then, let me just take over then.
All right.
Let's just give some. So yeah, thank you so much again, Igal. It was awesome. We're already getting requests on Twitter that you should do a next part. So
great.
Obviously you did an awesome job.
That's great.
Thanks once again. Just some more information. The homepage for jetbrains.com/resharper. Feedback about the webinar, send it to robert.demer@jetbrains.com, who puts all of these webinars and organizes all this. So thank you, Robert. The video will be available on our JetBrains YouTube channel, which we haven't announced this publicly, but we are moving all of our JetBrains TV over to YouTube. Blog more about that once it's complete, but you can make sure you check out the new videos on youtube.com/JetBrainsTV, and of course the blog for all of the .NET tools at blog.jetbrains.com/.NET. And once again, Igal, thanks very much, and for your time and awesome insight into ReSharper. And if you want to learn more about tips and tricks, apart from getting Igal back on to do a second webinar, please follow the ReSharper account on Twitter. And until next time, thanks everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.